The next awardee, we go from an extremely urban site to the fields. And this is actually the Stonehenge Exhibition and Visitor Center in the UK. And it's actually executed by an Australian firm, Denton, Corker, Marshall. And I believe the representative architect is Angela Dapper. And you can see from the slides, this project, of course, the constraint is to deal with this incredibly historic and iconic site. And the challenge, of course, is to site this particular building on this historic, iconic site. And you can see the size of it is a rather large building. I think the challenges are quite obvious, which is how do you actually respect this, the actual Stonehenge monument, and at the same time to provide an incredibly, should I say, engaged and experiential sequence from the visitor center to the actual henge site. So some of the comments from the jurors were delicate integration work in a World Heritage Site, simplicity, 2 blocks, one transparent, one opaque, underneath and this undulating surface, which is a zinc canopy. And then, of course, the idea of lightness as a contrast to the heaviness of the Stonehenge. So this is this idea of this kind of reciprocity between heavy and light, and nice details and perforation of the composite quartz zinc panels. So my question to the architect is this: is that can you give us a sense of the challenges and the of dealing with placing this project on the site, and your decision to actually create this incredibly light contrast?
The actual location of the buildings itself within the World Heritage Site was fundamental to us. We wanted to create a building that sat very lightly in the landscape and didn't draw upon any reference to the stones itself. Due to the nature and the archaeological content of the ground, the building actually had to have no foundations. We weren't allowed to dig into the ground at all. We weren't allowed to run services within the soil build-up. So in effect, if you jump back a couple of slides, back to the site plan. There you go. Thank you. The Airman's Corner site was the obvious answer to us because it allowed us to situate the building close to existing services, the roads, without the requirement to chase into the ground, as well as place the building in the landscape out of view of the Stonehenge monument itself, and also allowed the visitor to experience Stonehenge via the landscape.
Thank you.
So part of the concept we wanted this thin, undulating, floating canopy, which basically draws reference to the landscape around it. And we didn't just want the canopy to come to an end and just stop hard. So then we looked at these perforations, which basically just helps break up the edge of the canopy and just also allows like a dappling of light through what we call these steel columns as part of a forest. So that the build-up on top is just a single ply membrane, and the zinc component in effect is a zinc panel applied to the belly or the underside of the canopy, which is quite a complex setting out process due to the fact that the canopy bends in both directions, and we had to do it with a square panel, so we weren't allowed to cut individual panels to shape and size.